ओम अज्ञानं तिमिरन्धस्य ज्ञानाञ्जनशलाकया चक्षुरुन्मिलितं तस्मै श्रीगुरुवे नमः। श्रीचैतन्यमनोभीष्टं स्थापितं येन भूतले स्वरूपं कदा मह्यं ददाति स्वपदान्तिकं वन्देऽहं श्रीगुरु श्रीयुक्तपदकमलं श्रीगुरु वैष्णवं च श्रीरूपं सागरजातं सहगणरघुनाथवितं तं सजीवं साद्वैतं सावधूतं परिजनसहितं कृष्णचैतन्यदेवं श्रीराधाकृष्णपदां सहगणललिता शिवविशाखाप्तं च हे कृष्ण करुणा सिंधु दीनबंधु जगतपते गोपेश गोपेकांत राधाकांत नमस्तुते तप्त कंचन गौरांगी श्री राधे वृंदावनेश्वरी वृषभनुसुते देवी प्रणमामि हरिप्रिय नमः विष्णुपदाय कृष्ण पृष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमद् भक्तिवेदांत स्वामी नामिने नमस्ते सरस्वती देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पाशदेशतारिणे हे कृष्ण हे जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर शिवसादि गौर भक्तवृंद वंशाकल्पतरुभ्यश्च च कृपा सिन्धुभ्यः च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे हरे, हरे राम 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 हरे हरे। जय गुरु श्रील प्रभुपाद की जय। So today we are starting with the new book, Life Comes from Life, by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, founder Acharya of International Society for Krishna Consciousness, that is ISKCON. Moving to the first part, forward. Yes, Prabhuji. Yes, Ashwin, please start.
For people who have come to accept every pronouncement of modern scientists as tested and proven truth, this book will be an eye-opener. Life Comes from Life is an impromptu but brilliant critique of some of the dominant policies, theories, and presuppositions of modern science and scientists by one of the greatest philosophers and scholars of the century, His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada's vivid analysis uncovers the hidden and blatantly unfounded assumptions that underlie currently fashionable doctrines concerning the origins and purpose of life.
Okay, yes. Naveen Prabhuji.
Next second, Prabhuji. This book is based on taped morning walk conversation that Srila Prabhupada had with some of his disciples during 1972 in the Los Angeles area. On those mornings when he focused on science, Srila Prabhupada spoke mainly with his disciple Taudam D. Singh, T.D. Singh PhD, an organic chemist. Dr. Singh presently directs the Bhaktivedanta Institute, an international center for advanced study and research in science, philosophy and theology. जो महाराज जी का नाम मेरे को इनिशिएशन में याद नहीं आ रहा, महाराज मणिपुर के हैं और उनकी समाधि है वृंदावन में भी उनका है, अगर आप लोग गए हो तो देखा होगा, शायद वृंदावन में है या राधा कुंड, या वो अपना उधर आता है गोवर्धन परिक्रमा में आता है शायद कुंड के पास।
ओके, ये डॉक्टर सिंह जो है इनकी,
हाँ महाराज का मेरे को याद नहीं आ रहा, महाराज सन्यासी थे।
ओके, थैंक यू। Yes, his guest, Dash Prabhu.
Yes, Prabhu. He say wherever in the world he happened to be, Srila Prabhupada would go out for a lengthy stroll in the chill quietude of the early morning and cloaked in the warm wrap. He would share intimate moments with a small group of students, disciples, and special guests. The morning found him immersed in contemplation or quiet appreciation of surroundings, and little dialogue emerged. At other times, he spoke at great length and often with considerable intensity on various subjects. During these animated discourses, he demonstrated that philosophical analysis need not be a dull, abstruse affair, but can be a dynamic cutting edge into every sphere of life. Nothing could escape his keen intellect, deep spiritual insight, and uncommon wit. Rejecting superficial or dogmatic thinking, he edified, challenged, cajoled, charmed, and enlightened his students, and he carefully guided them to increase insights and understanding.
Swati Mataji.
Srila Prabhupada, 1896 to 1977, is an internationally recognized author, scholar, and spiritual preceptor, and he is widely esteemed as India's greatest cultural ambassador to the world. In Life Comes from Life, Srila Prabhupada takes the role of philosopher, social critic. With philosophical rigor, profound common sense, and disarming frankness, he exposes not only modern science methodological shortcomings and unexamined biases, but also the unverified and unverifiable speculations that scientists present to the trusting public as known fact. Thus, Srila Prabhupada breaks the spell of materialistic and nihilistic myths which, masquerading as science, have so bewitched modern civilization. The publishers.
Science, truth, and fiction. Once upon a time, as in a fairy tale, most of us believed that food we ate was basically wholesome, nutritious, and free from dangerous chemicals. That advertising may have been believable, and that product labels truly describe the quality and content of what we fed ourselves and our families. Once upon a time, most of the world believed in the integrity of our head of state, high ranking political officials, and local leaders. Once upon a time, we thought our children were getting a solid education in the public school system. Once upon a time, many of us believed atomic energy had peacetime uses that perfectly safe and completely congruous with the happy and healthy society. Yes.
Yet in recent, yet in recent times, our illusions have been shattered. Repeated exposes of widespread consumer fraud and grand political collusion and bribery have all but destroyed our former innocence. We now know that through mass marketing and the media, a wheel of fantasy and deception can be created with such unprecedented expertise that it can become impossible for us to distinguish between substance and simulation, reality and illusion.
Today, many scientists are propagating the doctrine that life originates from matter. However, they cannot provide proof, either experimentally or theoretically. In fact, they hold their stance essentially on faith, in the face of all sorts of scientific objections. Srila Prabhupada points out that in this groundless dogma has done great damage to moral and spiritual standards worldwide and has thus caused incalculable suffering.
Though beside by internal doubt and division, modern scientists have somehow managed to present a united front to the non-scientific public. Their behavior brings to mind the worst in political and corporate tricky. For instance, despite the recent outcry over their masking the difficulties of maintaining safety standards at nuclear power plants, the scientists and the government remain committed to nuclear power and even make light of the fact that there is no safe way of dealing with radioactive waste.
In popular works and in textbooks, scientists present their account of material origin of life as the only possible scientific conclusion. They claim that no other theory can be scientifically acceptable, and so everyone is taught that life gradually arose from chemicals, a primordial soup consisting of amino acids, proteins, and other essential ingredients. Yet in their journals and private discussions, the same scientists acknowledge that their theory has grave, sometimes insuperable difficulties. For example, certain features of the DNA coding mechanism cast serious doubt upon the substance of evolutionary thought. The noted biologist W. H. Thorpe writes, thus we may be faced with a possibility that the origin of life, like the origin of universe, becomes an impenetrable barrier to science and a block which resists all attempts to reduce biology to chemistry and physics. The highly committed evolutionist Jacques Monod has pointed out these same difficulties. Theodosius Dobzhansky Another prominent advocate of evolution can only agree. Our scientific knowledge is, of course, quite insignificant to give anything like satisfactory accounts of these transitions from no life to life, from no mind to mind. Biologists, as basically different in their views as W. H. Thorpe and Jacques Monod, agree that the origin of life is a difficult and thus far intractable and unsolved problem. I concur. Dobzhansky goes on to call the origin of life miraculous. These admissions by Dobzhansky, Monod, and Thorpe are by no means unique, yet in popular presentations and textbooks, one finds little hint of such widespread doubt.
Nobel Prize winning psychicist Eugene Wigner has shown the probability of the existence of a self-duplicating unit is zero. Since the ability to reproduce is one of the fundamental characteristics of all living organisms, Wigner concludes that our present understanding of physics and chemistry does not enable us to explain the phenomena of life. Herbert Yockey has demonstrated by information theory that even a single informational molecule such as cytochrome, what to speak of complex organisms, could not even arise by chance in the estimated lifetime of the earth. One must conclude that contrary to the established in current wisdom, a scenario describing the genesis of life on earth by the chance and natural causes which can be accepted on the basis of fact and not faith has not been yet written.
As we can see, on the one hand, many scientists have a deep personal commitment to the concept that life comes from matter. On the other hand, they admit that they do not have the evidence to corroborate their conviction, and that their theory is beset with intractable problems. They are convinced that life arose from matter and is reducible to matter. Yet, at the same time, they must confess to having scientific grounds for their conviction. Thus, their theory is a priori. It supersedes the scientific method and science itself. Their fervent, almost messianic hope is that someday, somehow, someone may be able to validate it. And in the meantime, their faith is unshakable.
नवीन प्रभु जी
मैं प्रभु जी पढ़ रहा था म्यूट पर. Dazzling technological achievements have given modern scientists an aura of infallibility. And so when the scientists present untested or unprovable theories about life's origin, people tend to accept with blind faith. In passages about Earth, William Irwin Thompson writes, just as once there was no appeal from the power of the churches without risking damnation, so now there is no appeal from the power of science without risking a charge of irrationality or insanity. And a botanist, Garrett Hardin, notes, anyone who questions the status of Darwin's inevitability attracts the speculative psychiatric eye to himself.
The dialogue in Life Comes from Life may seem revolutionary, but they were not Newton. Were not Newton, Pasteur, and Einstein scientific revolutionaries. Life Comes from Life does not simply criticize those who support the theory that matter is the origin of life. Rather, this book encourages them to rededicate themselves to a more genuine and intense quest for truth and knowledge, and to thereby redirect their valuable intelligence, resource, and work toward the true benefit of the world.
Yeah.
प्रभु जी इसमें एक चीज आपने देखी होगी जो स्टार्टिंग में मेंशन किया था कि वो जितना प्रोपेगेंडा चलाना ना, राइट, इट वाज हैपनिंग सिंस देन, राइट. प्रभुपाद ने जब बुक की तब भी प्रोपेगेंडा था. हम आज भी देखते हैं कि आप एक चीज का प्रोपेगेंडा चलाना है तो आप वो बिल्कुल आसानी से चला सकते हैं. यू कैन, लोगों को आपको जो कन्विंस करना है, जैसा सोचना है, मजबूर करना है, वैसा सोच बहुत इजी है. बेसिकली मैनिपुलेट करना लोगों को बहुत इजी है. और जो हम प्रभु जी आप बुक पढ़ रहे हैं जैसे रैशनल थिंकिंग वाला, उसको भी देखा तो 90% लोग तो क्वेश्चन करते ही नहीं है अगर सोचा जाए तो। अगर आपने जो सारे फैक्ट्स रख दिए हैं, अगर सामने पहले ये ऐसे एक सीरीज ऑफ आर्ग्यूमेंट्स दे दिए किसी टॉपिक को लेके, और वो आपने वो पूरा कन्विंस, आपने अगर पूरा पढ़ लिया और क्वेश्चन ही नहीं करोगे, आपको लगेगा वेरी कन्विंसिंग, यू विल कम टू कंक्लूजन एंड यू विल या दिस पर्सन इज राइट, या दैट पर्सन इज राइट, या दिस whatever they are telling is right. So I don't know if there is a solution, and I don't think so. Yeah.
Yes, Prabhuji. That is true.
Anyways, go ahead.
Okay, Prabhuji. So we are starting with the first morning walk, April 18, 1973. Recorded on April 18, 1973 in Cheviot Hills Park, Los Angeles. Srila Prabhupada is accompanied by Dr. Thwadam Damodar Singh, Karandhar Das Adhikari, Brahmananda Swami and the students. Life on other planets. Yes, Prabhuji आप assign कर देंगे Dr.
हाँ,
Singh.
तो श्रीला प्रभुपाद आप बन सकते हो विद प्रभु, और डॉक्टर सिंह नवीन प्रभु आप बनना चाहेंगे?
बन जाऊंगा प्रभु जी।
ओके, और मैं करंधर बनता हूँ। मैं करंधर कौन है? कोई स्टूडेंट है ना ऐसे ही? अच्छा, कोई डिसाइपल है प्रभुपाद के। ठीक है, चलो।
Even on the sun and moon, they are living entities. What is the opinion of the scientist?
They say there is no life there.
That is nonsense. There is life there.
They say that there is no life on the moon because they did not find any there.
Why do they believe that? The moon planet is covered with dust, but within that dust, the living entities can live. Every atmosphere is suitable for life, any atmosphere. Therefore, the Vedas describe the living entities as sarvagataha, which means existing in all circumstances. The living entity is not material. Although encased in a material body, he is not material. But when we speak of different atmospheres, we refer to different material conditions.
They say that moon's atmosphere is unsuitable for life, but all they can legitimately say is that it is unsuitable for life as they know it.
The Vedas say that the living entity has no connection with material things. He cannot be burned, cut, dried up, or moistened. This is discussed in Bhagavad Gita.
Scientists extend their knowledge about life on this planet, thinking that it must apply to life on other planets also.
Yes, they are thinking foremost of their own selves. They are thinking limitedly in terms of their own circumstances. That is what we call Dr. Frog's philosophy. Once there was a frog in a well, and when the friend informed him of the existence of the Atlantic Ocean, he asked the friend, "Oh, what is this Atlantic Ocean?" "It is a vast body of water," his friend replied. "How vast? Is it twice the size of the well? Twice the size of this well?" "Oh no, much larger, bigger," his friend replied. "How much larger?" "10 times the size." In this way, the frog went on calculating. But what is the possibility or ever understanding the vastness of the great ocean in this way? Our faculties, our experience, and our powers of speculation are always limited. The speculations of the scientist only give rise to such frog philosophy.
The basis of what they call scientific integrity is that they talk only about what they can directly experience.
You may talk about your experience and I may talk about my experience. But why should I accept your experience? You may be a fool, so why should I also become a fool? You may be a frog, but suppose I am a whale. Why should I take your well as all in all? You have your method of acquiring scientific knowledge, and I have mine.
Because scientists haven't detected any water on the surface of the moon, they have concluded that no life could survive there.
They haven't seen the whole surface of the moon. Suppose someone were to come here from another planet, drop into the Arabian desert, and then return home. Could he come to complete a conclusion about the nature of the whole earth? His knowledge would not be complete.
They have a device that senses water. They say they have had it orbit the moon, and they have concluded that the moon has no water and therefore no life.
Even if, as on the sun, there is apparently no water, still there are living entities here, there. How does a cactus grow in the desert? Apparently without water.
It gets water from the atmosphere.
Yes, because the atmosphere contains all the elements needed to sustain life: earth, water, fire, air, and ether. And in anything material, all these elements are present. For example, in my body, there is water, although you cannot see it. Similarly, you don't see fire in my body, yet my body is warm. Where does this warmth come from? You don't see any fire. Do you see any fire burning in my body? Then where does the warmth come from? What is this? What is the answer? The universe in the atom. All matter is a combination of five gross elements: earth, water, fire, air, and ether, and three subtle elements: mind, intelligence, false ego.
According to Vedic science, material energy begins with the false ego and then develops into the intelligence, then the mind, and then the gross elements, ether, air, fire, and so on. So the same basic ingredients are present in all matter. Is this right?
Yes, the creation of the material universe is like the growth of a great banyan tree from a tiny seed. No one can see the tree within the seed, but all necessary ingredients for the tree are there, including the required intelligence. Actually, everyone's body is simply a sample universe. Your body and my body are different universes, small universes. Therefore, all eight material elements are present within our bodies, just as they are within the whole universe. Similarly, an insect's body is another universe.
How about the atom?
The same formula applies. All these constituents are within the atom. Anor Amayan Mahato Mahiyan Katha Upanishad 1.2.20. This means that whether something is extremely large or infinitesimal, it is still made of the same basic elements. That is true everywhere in the material world. Just as a woman's small watch has all the requisite machinery for its smooth functioning, so an ant has all the necessary brain substance to manage its affairs nicely. How is this possible? To answer this properly, you must minutely examine the brain tissues in the ant. But this you cannot do. Moreover, there are innumerable insects smaller than the ant. So there must be a mechanical arrangement for all this detailed activity, but scientists cannot discover it. Relativity and knowledge. All living entities possesses the required intelligence to execute four principles: eating, sleeping, sexual intercourse, and defense. These four principles exist even in the atom. The only difference in the human being is that he has the extra intelligence with which to understand God. That is the difference. Ahara nidra bahema thunum cha samanam etat pasubhir panaranam. Eating, sleeping, sex life, and defense are to be found everywhere. You have seen trees growing where there is a knot. Wherever there is a knot, the bark does not go this way. It goes that way. Srila Prabhupada gesture to show that a tree's bark grows not over a knot but around it. The tree has intelligence. If I go this way, I will be blocked, so I will go that way. But where are its eyes? How can it see? It has intelligence. That intelligence may not be as good as yours, but it is intelligence. Similarly, a child also has intelligence through not as developed as his father's. In due course of time, when the child gets a body like that of his father, the child intelligence will be fully developed and exhibited.
Then intelligence is relative.
Yes, everything is relative. You have your body, your duration of life, and your intelligence, and the ant has his. Both we and the ant live for 100 years, but the length of our 100-year lifespan is related to our bodies. Even Brahma, the longest living entity in this universe, live for 100 years. To us, the ant's lifespan may seem only a few days. In the same way, on the other planet with atmosphere different from Earth's, their life forms suited to those conditions. But the scientists try to view everything according to relative condition of planet Earth. This is nonsense. Why are they doing that? If the whole cosmic manifestation follows the law of relativity, how can the scientists say that the condition of this planet must apply to life on other planets? The Vedas instruct us that knowledge must always be considered in terms of Desha, Kal, Patra. Desha means circumstances, Kal means time, Patra means the object. We must understand everything by taking these three elements into consideration. For example, a fish is living very comfortably in water and we are shivering on the shore of the sea. This is because my Desha Kalapatra and the fish Desha Kalapatra are different. If we conclude that the seagulls will also shiver in the water, that is nonsense. Their Desha Kalapatra is again different. There are 84 lakh different species of life in the material cosmic manifestation, and each species must adjust to circumstances differently. Even on this planet, you cannot go live comfortably in Alaska, although it is America. Similarly, the living entity enjoys life in Alaska. Do not come here.
मुझे स्टॉप करेंगे
Yes,
3 मिनट
okay.
Okay. Anyone wants to share, discuss anything?
मुझे लास्ट वाला पॉइंट बहुत अच्छा लगा, ये देश काल पात्र वाला, जब प्रभुपाद बता रहे हैं कि सबके लिए अलग अलग होते हैं वो सर्कमस्टेंसेस, अकॉर्डिंगली डिफरेंट लिविंग एंटिटी सरवाइव करती हैं। तो जो प्रभुपाद ने वो बहुत अच्छे से समझाया, दैट आई लाइक द मोस्ट इन टुडेस सेशन।
मुझे भी काफी अच्छा लगा वो, कि हम लोग बोल रहे हैं कि हम वाटर पे जिंदा रह सकते हैं, तो वहाँ भी पानी की खोज करने चले गए हम लोग। बोले पानी नहीं मिल रहा है, पानी नहीं मिल रहा है, तो मून पे लाइफ नहीं होगी, नहीं होगी करके हो सकता है उनको पानी की जरूरत ही ना पड़ती है। दैट इज देश काल पात्र। हो सकता है उनका अलग देश काल पात्र है, हमारा अलग है, वो साइंटिस्ट नहीं सोच रहे हैं। यस यस दशावत, आपको यू वांट टू शेयर समथिंग?
मुझे वो पॉइंट अच्छा लगा था जहाँ पे प्रभुपाद जी ने बताया था कि although we are engaged in material world but it's not material। तो प्रभुपाद यहाँ पे सोल की डेफिनेशन बता रहे थे, तो दैट पॉइंट आई लाइक। अब हम लोग मटेरियल वर्ल्ड में इंगेज होकर भी हम लोग मटेरियल ही नहीं है, हमारी स्पिरिट है जो हम एक सोल हैं जो कि मतलब डिफरेंट है इस मटेरियल। Yes, Suji, that's it.
Yes. Okay, thank you, Dashawat Abu. Okay. Yes, Udit, do you want to share something?
नो प्रभु जी, मतलब वही था पॉइंट अभी प्रभुपाद जो बता रहे हैं देश काल पात्रा का, वो मतलब दैट इज मेकिंग सेंस। अब वो सूर्य का भी एग्जांपल देगी, वहां पे फायर ही फायर है बट स्टिल वहां पे भी लोग रहते हैं। मतलब पॉसिबल है, मतलब पॉसिबल क्या, वो क्लियर कह रहे कि हर प्लेनेट पे लाइफ है, हर जगह लाइफ है, बट लॉ ऑफ रिलेटिविटी हर जगह काम नहीं कर सकता। दैट इज नॉनसेंस। यस।
और यहाँ पे प्रभुपाद वो एटम का एग्जांपल भी देके होता है ना, कि फायर, एयर, ईथर हर जगह प्रेजेंट है। जगह लाइफ आफ्टर लाइफ, लाइफ कम्स फ्रॉम लाइफ का मतलब यही है कि अगर हम लोग यहाँ पे जन्म लिया है तो इसका मतलब ऐसा नहीं कि मैटर से निकल के आ गया लाइफ। लाइफ तो लाइफ से ही आई होगी, इसका मतलब देयर वाज अ लाइफ बिहाइंड हु क्रिएटेड दिस लाइफ दैट वी आर लिविंग। Right, so and we know from the scriptures that Brahma created, how Brahma created and how Brahma came out of Mahavishnu. So in a Vedic text we always see this, there is a supreme person behind who has a life, and then he is creating this material universe, and from him all of us are come down into this material. So life comes from life.
Yes, तो जी एक पॉइंट वो भी अच्छा था कि ब्रह्मा जी का लाइफ टेन्योर जैसे हमारे लिए एक एंट का लाइफ होता है, ऐसे ब्रह्मा जी का 100 years का लाइफ होता है, वो बहुत बड़ा होता है एज कम्पेयर टू हमारी लाइफ। उनके कंपैरिजन भी हम भी वैसी हैं जैसे हमारे लिए कोई कीड़ा हो गया।
हाँ, मतलब अगर देखा जाए तो ब्रह्मा जी के डे टाइम में 14 मनवंतर निकल गए, अगर वैसे हम देखें तो मतलब 14 घंटे भी मान लो कि चलो ब्रह्मा जी का मान ले कि सुबह 6 बजे से काम करना शुरू किया रात के 8 बजे तक, 14 घंटे, तो हर घंटे में एक मनवंतर निकल रहा है, और हर मनवंतर में 71 महायुग है। समझ रहे हैं? मतलब अगर हम उनका घंटा बड़ा होगा
हम्म,
और हम वैदिक घंटे भी मगर ऐसा माने कि एक घंटे में 14 मनवंतर निकल गए,
हम्म,
और सॉरी एक घंटे में एक मनवंतर निकल गया।
हम्म,
एक घंटा भी उनका काफी बड़ा होगा वैसे, क्योंकि
हम्म,
अगर देखा जाए तो एक मनवंतर ही 71 महायुग के बराबर है।
यस गुरुजी,
तो मतलब 71 महायुग निकल गए एक घंटे में।
32 करोड़ साल बैठेंगे गुरुजी।
32 करोड़ साल एक घंटे में मान लो कि ठीक है, एक घंटा 32 करोड़ साल में अपने को फिट करते हैं हम लोग कि अगर हम 100 साल भी जिए, सपोज करो कि अगर हम पुरुष ही मतलब ऐसे ह्यूमन बीइंग्स में ही आए, तो भी 100 साल जिए तो कितने जन्म हमने ले लिए होंगे एक मनवंतर में ही।
यस गुरुजी।
विच मीन्स कि हम हर जन्म में कुछ ना कुछ प्लानिंग कर रहे होंगे।
हम्म,
अब ये अब ये अब ये अब ये अब ये अब ये
जी,
ऐसे सोच इस
जैसे 3.5 लाख बार मतलब एक घंटे में पैदा हो रहे हैं हम उनके।
तो मतलब ऊपर ब्रह्मा जी ऊपर बैठ के देख रहे हैं कि ये अब मतलब पैदा हुआ है, प्लानिंग कर रहा है, और फिर से दूसरी बार इसका जन्म होगा, देखो फिर प्लानिंग कर रहा है, ये कर लो वो कर लो ये कर लो वो कर लो।
सॉरी प्रभु जी, 3.5 नहीं, 35 लाख बार, लगभग 35 लाख बार एक घंटे में
अच्छा,
जन्म
तो
ले रहा है।
मतलब ऐसा है कि जैसे मान लो हम ऊपर से देख रहे हैं कोई चींटी पैदा हुई और फिर मरी, फिर पैदा हुई फिर मरी हमारे एक घंटे में, तो हम सोच रहे हैं कि चींटी ये क्या करे जा रही है चीनी के दाने के साथ, पैदा होगी फिर चीनी का दाना ढोती रहेगी फिर मर जाएगी, फिर चीनी का दाना ढोती रहेगी फिर मर जाएगी 35 लाख बार। जैसे ब्रह्मा जी हमें देखते होंगे कि लगे हुए चीनी के दाना ढोने, फिर ऐसे किसी जन्म में देखते होंगे अच्छे से कृष्ण भक्ति पकड़ ली, चलो अब इसका कुछ हो जाएगा, पर देखने ने कृष्ण भक्ति तो पकड़ ली पर अभी भी चीनी का दाना ढोना छोड़ा नहीं है इसने। तो फिर भी उन्हें ज्यादा हंसी आती होगी हम लोगों के ऊपर, बहुत ही।
यस प्रो जी, सॉरी टू इंटरप्ट, बट मैं यहाँ पे एक क्वेश्चन आ रहा था माइंड में कि लाइफ कम्स फ्रॉम लाइफ से हम मतलब प्रभुपाद जी यहाँ पे क्या प्रूफ करना चाह रहे हैं अबाउट सोल, एग्जिस्टेंस ऑफ सोल और समथिंग एल्स प्रभु जी?
एक तो यहाँ पे जैसे हमने 4 उसमें पढ़ा था ना, 4 स्टार्टिंग में जो प्रीफेस था, 4 एंड था, उसमें बता रहे थे ना कि जो साइंटिस्ट है या जो वो लोग जो साइंटिस्ट की बातों को सच मानते हैं उनके लिए प्रभुपाद की बुक आई ओपनर होगी। तो वहां से पढ़ के तो ये लगता है कि प्रभुपाद साइंटिस्ट जो ये कह रहे हैं कि लाइफ कम्स फ्रॉम मैटर, उसको क्वेश्चन कर रहे हैं कि लाइफ कैन नॉट कम फ्रॉम मैटर, लाइफ कम्स फ्रॉम लाइफ, व्हिच मींस ऑल ऑफ अस केम फ्रॉम कृष्णा।
राइट, लाइक आजकल जो साइंटिस्ट है मतलब वो जैसे मतलब लाइफ कम्स फ्रॉम मैटर की डायरेक्शन में जा रहे हैं, जो वो लाइफ मैटर के थ्रू लाइफ मतलब क्रिएट करना चाह रहे हैं, और वो मिस डायरेक्ट कर रहे हैं मतलब हमारे मतलब पीपल्स को, मतलब तो मिस डायरेक्शन में मतलब हमारा टाइम वेस्ट कर रहे हैं बेसिकली। तो प्रभुपाद कह रहे हैं कि उस डायरेक्शन में हमें नहीं जाना है, और हमें मतलब तो जो फैक्ट है जो वेदास कहते हैं उनको मानना है, जो लाइफ कम्स फ्रॉम लाइफ।
राइट। तो इस पूरी बुक में प्रभुपाद के जो मॉर्निंग वॉक कन्वर्सेशन में यही सब डिस्कशन चलेगा साइंटिस्ट के ऊपर ही, फिर उसमें क्रॉस क्वेश्चनिंग होगी डिसाइपल से, तो फिर प्रभुपाद उसको कट करेंगे, इस तरह से चलेगा पूरी बुक में, विद सम उसी के अराउंड ही है वो कि लाइफ कम्स फ्रॉम।
ओके ब्रो जी, थैंक यू।
Okay, so we'll stop now. वंशाकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धुश्च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। श्रील प्रभुपाद की जय।
Thank you for joining everyone. Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna.